All right, everybody, thanks for joining us again here today. Keller Williams Princeton, it's September 23rd. Um, Almost concluding our series on the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, 24 topics. We're reaching the summit today of Mount Everest, and we are going to receive $1 million. So let's get started here. We'll jump right into it. Always love to share the opening dedication of the MREA. It's dedicated to the men and women everywhere whose hard work and entrepreneurial spirit place them squarely on the front lines of free enterprise. This book is dedicated to all real estate agents. We'll jump right into the slides here, picking up where we left off from last week. So we're starting with receive $1 million, and that starts on page 263. The slides here, we're going to catch up a little bit here on starting on page 255, just kind of the way things broke out here. But this is the goal to action. And this is a pretty interesting graph. You can find it also on this one, as well as on page 255. So just to kind of bring us up to speed on this a little bit, this was kind of wrapping up the pathway from earning $1 million to receiving $1 million. So goal to action, this is some really interesting stuff here on pages 255, 256, and 257. There's actually 3 different tables here, and we'll just pull up the figures to take a look at that. So here where we're working on is the 20% of the MREA, and this is actually about focusing your daily activities to stay, again, focused on the 20% things we need to do. There's a choice. And it's really about either being focused or unfocused. The busier you get, the busier you're going to be. Sounds funny, but it's true. So here, a goal to action worksheet. This is something you could do with your team. You could do it individually. We can do it with the Market Center staff as well. Just starting out with writing down your goals and action steps that you're going to take to achieve them. And then actually allocating time in your personal calendar for all the action steps you need to accomplish. They say that if it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. So our calendars need to represent and accurately reflect what our goals are and what we're trying to accomplish. Just for fun, if you're interested in making $100,000 a year, pull out your calendar and just ask yourself, would you pay yourself $100,000 a year for your calendar? In other words, do you have the right activities outlined on your calendar that you're going to make your goals and do the things that need to be done to get you to where you want to be? Bringing into that the daily to-do sheet. So this is the 80% of the tasks that obviously, I think a lot of times distracts us. Again, it's the bulk of the work, and it's things that do need to get done, but it's not necessarily part of your 20%. It is not necessarily going to deliver the results and the goals that you had intended. Yes, it may still be necessary and it still has to get done, but the idea is to do it after your 20%. The daily worksheet, so beyond creating a daily planner that puts it all together, this is a list of what you're going to do each day. I've had planners where I do it on a detailed daily basis, and sometimes, your one thing can get lost. If you do happen to subscribe to the one thing and the one thing planner, you realize it's not a day at a glance or a week at a glance, it's actually a month at a glance. So interestingly, there's not enough paper to write everything down on. It's physically limiting, so that really what it's intended to do is draw out that one thing each day and to keep you focused on that one thing. Now there are, obviously, you need more than that to, actually do your jobs. Here's a goal to action 20% worksheet. So this is an exercise you can go through. Again, solo agents, teams can do it. Market centers, leadership and staff can do it. Write down the goal. What is the goal? What is you're trying to accomplish? When is it due? When do you need to accomplish it by? And what are the action steps that you're going to take along the way to get that done? So this can be done for multiple goals. Could be team goals, could be individual goals. But again, the idea is to stay focused on that 20%, to draw out those things and identify those activities that are going to keep you on track to meet those goals. The master task list, this is your 80%. So this is all that other stuff that comes up during the day. Yes, you do need to write it down, keep track of it, check it off somewhere. There are still many important things in there that have to be done, but they're not necessarily going to deliver the results that you're looking for the same as your 20% would. So taking those three documents together, this is what either a solo agent or a team or anybody could really do to outline their business and get more focused around it. For new agents, again, what's interesting is even if you're in a productivity coaching program, the only person that's going to hold you accountable is you. The pro coach will help, others will help. If you're in coaching with me, I'll help as well. But this is really about you time blocking a calendar and getting focused and purposeful around what you're doing. So the daily worksheet, so again, we do have to break down our tasks. We do have business and personal tasks, and we don't want to lose sight of the personal. On some days, that personal task might be even more important than the 20% business task. It could be the 20% of your personal life that needs to get done. And we still need to have a calendar. We still have appointments throughout the day. You can decide for yourself what your working hours are, your schedule. Obviously, dual career, parents, caregivers all have different schedules throughout the day and the week that they have to adjust and accommodate to. So find your time, find the time that works for you and carve out that time, but stay focused and dedicated to it. So these can all be downloaded and printed. You can make photocopies of these. You can go recreate these documents yourself, whatever suits you, whatever you like to do. But again, pulling all four of these documents together is the goal of the 20% system. Now, once you have that in place, let's flip back to the slides here real quick. So we talked about the goal to action 20%, really staying focused on that 20%, working through the worksheet, the calendar, the daily worksheet, and the daily to-do list. Page 259, so with that in mind, we're going to jump into what's considered counterbalancing your life. Again, when you see a successful person who appears balanced, realize that it's an illusion. In the book, Gary goes on to describe how he relates it to skiing, especially in the moguls. You look at the downhill skiers and the fact that, maybe a large portion of the time, they're actually out of balance and they're just kind of on that fine line of maintaining balance, staying on their edges, getting around those obstacles, those flags, and adjusting and pivoting back and forth the entire way down the mountain. So same type of idea, same type of analogy. Now, when you're counterbalancing, there is a graph earlier on in MREA and also from the one thing, you'll see when there's times you do go out of balance. So it's not always, the idea of a work-life balance doesn't necessarily exist. And this is sort of counterintuitive to that. It's not about having a work-life balance. It's actually a matter of following the model, but willing to go outside the lines and go outside balance for a short period of time in order to accomplish something. So, maybe you have to go outside and spend additional time. You got to work, put additional hours in during the week, the weekend, after hours at night, to work on something in your business. During the day, you're working in the business, but you still have to go out out of balance to work on something in order to move the business forward. Same thing could be true in your personal life. You got to get that time back with family. You got to take vacations. You got to turn the electronic devices off. You got to step away from the business to get some clarity and just to recharge your battery. So those are times when you're purposely going to go out of balance, but it's for a reason. It's to accomplish something short term in order to keep you focused long term on it. Now, you can redline your career. You can stay out of balance too long as well. That's called burnout. So, when you start to feel that happening, you gotta do something to bring it back into balance. Take the time off, plan a vacation. Gary talks about he always plans out his personal vacation time at the beginning of the year. It's the first thing that he does. Is he plans all his vacation time for the calendar for the upcoming 12 months. Then he works backwards into that, what his work schedule is going to be. Same thing's true for real estate agents just getting started in the business, dual career, et cetera, whatever. If you're going to build a calendar, you're going to have to build your family on that calendar first in your vacation time. Then you're going to carve out the time for your 20% activities. And you're going to have to realize that, there is going to be some shifting back and forth throughout, could be weekly, monthly, and annually as you work through those things. Recognizing, working on the issues. So as we move from earn $1 million to net $1 million, you can definitely see a difference in your career. Again, we're focused on the big 5 things we talked about last week, making that transition: leads, listings, leverage, money, and you. In the next transition, from net $1 million to receive $1 million could be the most difficult. The difference is really between working in a business and owning a business. And it's now more of a conversation around passive income, active, passive income. So here we are at receive $1 million. Again, the 4 issues starting on page 63, active versus passive. So full transparency, there's maybe nothing really, maybe there's no really truly passive income, because even our profit share system, even though it's a passive income in terms of investment risk and things like that, if you really want to reap the benefits of profit share, you're going to do things to help and support those people that you've brought into your downline. It could be referring them leads, helping them with coaching, training. None of these things are obligations on your part, but you are taking an active role in helping them to be successful, which in turn will generate obviously more profit share for you and more passive income on a monthly business. Owning a real estate business is the same thing. When you go from working in the business to working on the business, even though you're working on the business now and things are being done by others, you still have to be there for accountability. You can't walk away from the business. You still have to be there to hold people accountable. So it's more about maybe actively holding people accountable to your standards, to the goals and the things you expect to get done. You can't completely walk away from it, even though you have people in roles that are running the business on a day-to-day basis. You're still going to maintain some kind of level of activity. So there's a couple of nice graphs here on page 267. Let's see here. There's some other graphs in between here. This represents the journey from working in the business to working on your business. So on the left-hand side here, there's 2 circles, on and in. So the difference is the I and the O. So working in your business is what I do. And you can see that on the right. When you get started out, you're setting and doing all the standards and you're being an agent and you're doing it. There's a small fraction there of working on the business, which revolves around getting your economic model in place, your lead generation model, and your budget model. So even a solo agent in your very beginning, those are the things, getting those documents in place, getting your business plan in place. Those are things you could do to work on your business while you're spending the majority of your time doing it yourself in the business. As you start to transition through, maybe you have an opportunity to start outsourcing and getting leverage. People, starting with people first. Maybe you're hiring a transaction coordinator, maybe a marketing specialist or someone else to help you work on the business. Again, while you're still in the business doing things, you're starting to establish and maintain standards, and you're sharing more of the doing. So you're now wearing maybe a manager's hat. So now you're starting to get the feel of what it's like to start managing it from a business point of view. And then ultimately the goal is to become the owner, where now you've established your standards, you shared the doing, now you're holding people accountable to your standards. Now you can see on the left-hand side, on is the majority, 75, 80% of the work is being done by others. You're still in the business because you need to hold people accountable to standards, but you're working more as a business owner, and others are doing the majority of the work. So take a look at that on page 267. The issues of revolving around the 4 issues of working in the business, active versus passive. So again, there's no truly passive. It's just sort of in a different way. And turning your real estate business into a 7th level business is really actually a better option. And again, that only happens through the hiring of the 3 key hires: your administrative hire, your lead listing specialist, and your lead buyer specialist. But it's also about, if you remember back to the organizational model, it's about learning how to recruit, train, consult, and retain those people. The first 2 issues, active and passive income and the opportunity to 7th level, are really about understanding and awareness of what you're going to have to do to make the transition. The last 2 steps are really about what you're going to be doing in the business, your roles and responsibilities, around managing people and doing those things. So again, page 267, 267, again, working in your business versus working on, identifying your 20%, keeping on the calendar. Don't compromise your goals and activities to achieve them. And if you erase it, you must replace it. Really interesting discussions on getting to the 7th level, pages 270 talks about dollars per hour. It's a really interesting concept there. When you look at working in the business, your dollars per hour goes up. This is accomplished through getting leverage and doing things through others. You're still maybe making the same amount of money, but you're spending less time doing it. So you're actually earning more dollars per hour. There is some challenges along the way. On page 271, connecting versus disconnecting. And again, this is about staying focused in the business and not drifting away from it. If you drift away from it too far and things go awry, you're going to have to jump back in and spend even more effort to get it back on track than if you had just stayed engaged and helped it to stay on track. Again, absentee ownership usually equals business demise. And owners who choose to be absent and not to have an active role should probably just consider selling. Now, that's some pretty strong words, but you know, that's the reality of the situation. You just don't know what you might come back and find, you know, if you're not staying active in the role. The opportunity at the 7th level, the graph here is nice, but there's a bigger understanding behind this. With risk comes reward. So in real estate, you have an enormous amount of reward potential. Really no limitations on how much you can earn and make in real estate, but equally, there's an enormous amount of risk. There's no security, there's no pension, there's no 401k, there's no backup plan. There's nothing to fall back on. So staying active in the job is going to require a mindset. And we've talked about that at the very beginning about the way a millionaire real estate agent thinks and the ideas that they have to help pull them through that. While the industry provides great freedom and flexibility to build life by design, at the end, sadly, you know, it doesn't necessarily build financial security unless you're going to be doing other things. Profit share and passive income is one opportunity to build that income for later on. Converting your business, taking your real estate business to a 7th level is another opportunity, and maybe even the better choice, the better opportunity to take that business and turn it into a passive income opportunities. But at the end of the day, that's the challenge for the real estate professional. Lots of freedom, lots of flexibility, lots of potential for reward, but also a lot of risk that comes along with it. This graph here on page 273, it's a little bit too hard to see here on the screen. Let me see if I can pull up the PDF. It might be a little cleaner. Now let's see. Again, this is just a conceptual layout. Looking at the different levels. The bottom line is, you know, you don't skip levels, you grow through these levels naturally. And the goal is really to master each level and to really hold yourself accountable to that level of mastery before moving on to the next one. Sometimes agents will jump ahead, they'll jump into hiring specialists, different things before they've really set up their administrative hub. Again, focus on the admin first. You can see here the first 2 hires. Levels 2, 3, and 4, the first 2 hires is administrative. Not until you get your administration set up and running properly do you hire the buyer specialist. But once you get to the buyer specialist, then you can start outsourcing the buyers. And at some point, you're going to start looking for that seller listing specialist. This is someone who can start to take over your job. Traditionally, listings would be the last thing you give away in your job roles, your function, but that's seller specialist. And so the 6th level here in bold is really the 3 key hires: the seller specialist, the administrative manager, the buyer specialist. And from there, you can really start to grow however you want. 7th level and beyond into things like expansion. There's a couple notes here at the bottom. You don't need to predetermine what level you're going to achieve. Again, the goal is to master each level as you work along. Try not to skip steps. Again, it's we have models and systems in place for a reason. There's plenty of people that came before us. And the research shows that these are the proven practices. So just consider that and stay the course. Again, if you feel like you're reaching a burnout level, then you maybe need to take a step back. If you feel like the business isn't progressing and it's starting to backslide, again, it's going to be a time to kind of reevaluate. And again, if you're not considering going to the 7th level with your real estate business, think back again about risk and reward. You're going to need to become an expert in investing, because you're going to need to do something to save for your retirement, to save for your future. If you're not going to build a real estate business to a 7th level that can produce passive income, then you're going to need to learn how to invest, either through property investment or other stocks, natural stocks, and Wall Street and mutual funds and all these other things. But you're going to have to start taking money aside from your business each year and putting it towards your retirement. Because again, there is no other backup plan. So you have to be able to discipline yourself to pull that money out and put it aside and start investing in it in order to save for retirement. Alternatively, you build a business to the 7th level and be able to step out of it and let somebody else run it in order to generate that income for you. This could go off in a lot of different directions. You could go into, for example, property investment. You can go into property management. You could go into market center ownership. You can go into mega agent offices. You can just run your own team. You can run a small individual practices as well. With the right person, with the right administrative person on it, you can still achieve that 7th level, albeit maybe at a smaller scale. But again, the idea is the business is generating income after you've stopped actively working in the business on a day-to-day basis. So I think with that, we've reached the conclusion for today. We have one more session coming up next week. So we'll come back for that. So now that we've reached the summit of Mount Everest, we have to get back down. So next week, the last class, we're going to share that. Does anybody have any questions for today? Any ahas or something even in previous weeks that they thought of this week? Anything new? So they say that the path is there. You know, back 15 years ago when this book was written, it seemed a little bit more distant that agents could actually build a business big enough to receive $1 million. 15 years later, 18 years later, we now see that it's more than possible. It's probable, and there's agents out there, and we have an expansion team here at the office, run by agents that are now beyond this level. They're now not just receiving $1 million; they're receiving multi-million a year from their real estate businesses. Now, yes, those businesses are much larger with hundreds of agents involved. But there's more millionaire real estate agents today, you know, than there were 18 years ago, and it's because now the path has been identified. We know the models, we know the numbers, we know where we need to be and the activities we need to do to get there. So it's much more likely and achievable than it has been before. So maybe it's something for you. Maybe not everybody will, but anybody can, but not everybody will. So thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next week for the last session.